It was the spring of 1955, a quieter time in America. The war was over, the economy was booming, and in places like Berkeley, California, life moved at a slower, safer pace. Families left their doors unlocked. Children played unsupervised. Parents didn't worry when a teenager walked home alone from school. But on the afternoon of April 28, 1955, that illusion of safety shattered forever. That day, 14-year-old Stephanie Bryan left Willard Junior High School in Berkeley. She was a good student, bright, cheerful, and well-liked by her teachers and classmates. She had her routines after school. She usually walked home, often cutting through a parking lot near the Claremont Hotel to save a few minutes. It was a route she had taken countless times. Familiar, safe, but this time, Stephanie never made. At home, the disappearance when Stephanie failed to arrive by the usual time. Her family knew something was wrong. She wasn't the kind of girl to run away. She didn't have a boyfriend. There was no trouble at school or home. She was the type of teenager every parent hopes for. Responsible, thoughtful, and punctual. Hours passed. Her parents began calling friends, teachers, and neighbors. No one had seen her. The next morning, police were notified, and a missing persons case was opened. At first, investigators considered the possibility of a runaway. It was standard procedure, but the theory didn't fit, not with Stephanie's background, her personality, or her family life. Soon, her disappearance sparked one of the largest manhunts in California history. Volunteers searched the city on foot. Flyers were printed by the thousands and plastered across telephone poles, store windows, and car windshields. Police retraced Stephanie's last known steps, interviewed witnesses, and checked buses, trains, and nearby cities. For a while, it seemed like everyone in Berkeley was looking for Stephanie Bryan. But weeks passed, then months. And still, nothing. The trail had gone cold. A break in the case on July 15, 1955, 78 days after Stephanie vanished. The phone rang at the Berkeley Police Department. On the other end was a woman named Georgia Abbott, a quiet housewife living just a few blocks from Stephanie's school. What she told police was chilling. While cleaning her basement, Georgia said she discovered a hidden purse. Curious, she opened it. Inside were items that made her blood run cold. School books, a pair of eyeglasses, and a teenage girl's identification card. The name on it, Stephanie Bryan. Within hours, police descended on the Abbott residence on Colusa Avenue. It was a modest two-story home. Georgia lived there with her husband, 27-year-old Burton Abbott, a University of California student studying accounting, their young son, and Burton's mother, Elsie. Police cordoned off the home and entered the basement. What they found confirmed Georgia's story. And then some. Alongside Stephanie's ID and books were more personal items, her glasses, her brassiere, and her red-covered social studies textbook. Her belongings were tucked behind a furnace, hidden, but not well enough. It was a horrifying discovery. These were items Stephanie would never have willingly parted with. The fact that they were in someone else's basement, miles from where she was last seen, shattered any remaining hope that she might still be alive. The question wasn't, where is Stephanie? It was, what happened to her? The body in the woods, the discovery in the basement changed everything. Police immediately focused on Burton Abbott. He denied everything, claimed he had no idea how Stephanie's things got into his home. He floated a strange theory. His basement had been used as a polling station during elections. Maybe someone had planted the evidence. Detectives weren't convinced. They launched a full investigation into the Abbott family's properties. That included a remote cabin in the Trinity National Forest, more than 280 miles north of Berkeley. The Abbotts rarely used it, but records showed Burton had access around the time of Stephanie's disappearance. A search party flew to the remote location. Days later, about 100 yards from the cabin, under pine trees and brush, investigators found a shallow grave. Inside was the decomposed body of a teenage girl. It was Stephanie Bryan. She had been bludgeoned to death. Due to decomposition, medical examiners couldn't determine whether she'd been sexually assaulted, but her injuries were severe, her death violent. The case had officially become a murder, and Burton Abbott, the seemingly quiet, unassuming college student, was the prime suspect. The arrest and the trial. Burton Abbott was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. He maintained his innocence from the start. The evidence against him was largely circumstantial. No one had seen him with Stephanie. There were no fingerprints, no confession, no murder weapon. But the collection of evidence painted a dark portrait. Stephanie's belongings were found in his basement. Fibers from his car matched those on her clothing. Hairs found in the back seat matched her color and texture. He had access to the cabin where her body was discovered. His alibi for the day of the disappearance was vague and inconsistent. The prosecution argued that the evidence, while circumstantial, was overwhelming. They said Burton lured Stephanie, abducted her, held her in the basement, and then transported her body to the cabin after killing her in court. They presented Stephanie's torn undergarments to the jury, a calculated move designed to provoke an emotional response. Burton's defense team struck back, calling the case a rush to judgment. They claimed the evidence was planted, pointing again to the polling station theory. They argued that Burton was in poor health, he had tuberculosis and part of one lung removed, and couldn't have physically carried a body through the woods and dug a grave. Burton himself testified. He spent 4 days on the stand, answering every question calmly. He denied knowing Stephanie, denied ever seeing her, denied any involvement. But the jury didn't believe him. After 7 days of deliberation, they returned a verdict. Guilty. First-degree murder. Burton Abbott was sentenced to death in California's gas chamber. Death row and last-minute appeals. Burton was transferred to San Quentin State Prison. There, in the cold, echoing corridors of death row, he awaited execution. Attorneys filed appeal after appeal. All were denied. Then, a date was set, March 15, 1957. As the day approached, public interest in the case reignited. Newspapers ran countdowns. Radio stations covered the final appeals. Protesters gathered, some calling for his death, others decrying what they believed was a grave miscarriage of justice. At 11 a.m., with just 15 minutes left before execution, a desperate final effort was made. Burton's attorney contacted a local TV station and made a live on-air plea to Governor Goodwin Knight, who was aboard a Navy cruiser off the coast. Miraculously, word reached the governor. He issued a 1-hour stay of execution to allow time to review the case. But at San Quentin, preparations had already begun. Burton was escorted to the gas chamber. The final steps were underway. Then, at 11:12 a.m., Governor Knight ordered a second stay. The call went through to the prison, but it was too late. At 11:15 a.m., the cyanide pellets dropped. The chamber filled with gas. Burton Abbott took his final breath. When the phone rang, the warden answered. The stay had come, but the execution had already begun. Burton Abbott was dead. Aftermath and legacy. His final words were haunting. I am not guilty. I never harmed that girl. The public reaction was immediate and divided. Some felt justice had been served. Others were horrified. Had California just executed an innocent man? Was the timing of the phone call a tragic accident, or proof of a system moving too fast? Burton's mother, Elsie Abbott, never wavered in her belief in his innocence. She accused her own brother, a man with access to the home, of possibly planting the evidence. Authorities never investigated that lead seriously. For the next 5 decades, Elsie fought to clear her son's name. She bought newspaper ads, collected statements, filed petitions, and pursued legal action until her death in 2004. At the age of 100, her quest went unanswered. By controversial the case of Stephanie Bryan and Burton Abbott remains one of the most haunting and controversial chapters in California legal history. It is a case of tragedy stacked on tragedy. A young girl's life, stolen far too soon. A man executed, possibly innocent, with evidence that never quite reached the level of proof. A legal system that moved faster than the ringing of a phone, and one moment, above all others, defines the case. A call for mercy, a ringing phone, and a man in a gas chamber who may have died just 2 minutes too soon.